Hey, good day, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Pirkei Avos, live from Israel, the Ethics of the Fathers, with Rabbi Chaim Coffman, and I am so appreciating all the work he's doing. If you folks haven't caught his new Noahide series on Noahide Nations, I encourage you to go over to Noahide Nations website, get enrolled, check it out. He does these on Sundays, beautiful, sharp classes where he's sharing some wonderful material for Noahides, especially if you're new at it. Great opportunity for you to learn, and I encourage everybody to support the rabbis wherever you can, because they are people too, and they spend a lot of their time in study to prepare to share with us, and more than just prepare to share with us, they're always studying them for themselves, and their time they spend doing these broadcasts, their efforts are definitely worth supporting, and so that's all I got to say about that. But let's just break right in and see how Rabbi Coffman's doing today. Good day, Rabbi Coffman. You're live on the air. We're still on chapter 2, Mishna8, but part 3 today?
This is part 3. This is a big Mishnah. This is probably part 4, part 5, part 6. We'll see how far it goes. We'll say, give at the end, give a plug for this Noahide Nations class that we just started last week. We gave a preface and an introduction. It was really a preface to the introduction. Gave an introduction this week.
It was sharp.
This week, tomorrow, we're gonna speak about history, I guess, of the, of Noahides and way back in modern history, etc.
Nice.
So, should be a good. Hopefully, it should be a good watch. We are in chapter 2, Mishna8, and we're gonna see now. Second part of the Mishnah. We spent 2 classes, 2 videos doing the more flesh, the more worms, right? We spent last week on one aspect of that, and now we're going to continue, and we'll see how far this goes, because we've spoken about this before, but we're going to see it now, definitely more in depth, and that is the more possessions, the more worry. Right now, that's, I would think, should be obvious, but
the more possessions, the more
worry. The more someone is going to be worried, right? What would simple explanation mean? I'm worried that if I had a lot of possessions, how am I going to keep them? If I have a lot of money, I got to make sure it's invested right. I have to make sure I don't put it all in the stock market. I have to, be smart about it. Otherwise, I'm going to lose it. Right, or
it's going to be a distraction for sure. The more you have, for
sure.
Oh,
that's going to be another issue. That even if you have it, you'll be totally distracted. How are you going to keep it, right? And how are you going to make more, right? Because we're going to see that if a person has 100, he wants 200. If he has 200, he wants 400.
I've never met a millionaire satisfied with one.
Never happened. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos later, right? We'll get that when probably in the next millennium at some point. It says, who's the rich person? Right? Miu Asher, who's considered rich? A Sameach Bechelkoi. Somebody's happy with what he has.
Satisfied with their portion.
It doesn't mean someone who's got a lot of money. Right? Someone who's got a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean he's going to happy. He's going to be happy. Right? In general, people with money are miserable. Right? They don't have happy life. Even though Constitution of America says the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Pursuit of property. So what does that mean? They were Bible thumpers. Remember, the founding fathers of the American Constitution were Bible thumpers, many of them.
Yep, fleeing religious persecution themselves.
Right.
They thought.
Also true, but the point is that what's the pursuit of happiness? So we could say pursuit of happiness is money. Pursuit of whatever I want to do. But isn't pursuit of happiness property? Isn't it? The difference between men and boys is the size of their toys, right? Person wants more. That's what they want. So here, one explanation is that someone's going to be constantly worried that someone's going to steal it. Oh, you got a lot of money. You got a lot of property. We're worried someone's going to pounce on him. Take his money. Right? They'll maybe kidnap him, maybe ransom, like what goes on in Mexico, right? People have money and have a lot of money. They need protection. They need protection from someone kidnapping them for ransom, Forget a scam. We're not even talking about a scam, right? We're talking about someone getting kidnapped. It happens in South America. It happens in Mexico. Right? It happens in a lot of places. Now, a righteous person once prayed to God and said, save him from a scattering of his soul. A little bit strange. What does that mean, scattering of his soul? So that if he ever had a lot of property and it's going to be spread out in many places, he's going to have to scatter his soul, so to speak. So he will go to each place to see what's happening with their property. Right? In other words, why we want to do that? Why would I want to have a lot of property? This place, the other place, I'm going to have to go from place to place. Never going to have time to learn. Right? So what would Coffman's law be? Right? What would I say? I would say, if anyone's ever been involved in real estate and you had a lot of property, you were a property manager, hire a property manager. What's the problem? Hire someone that knows what they're doing. You're going to pay them. So obviously, they're going to make sure the property's, there's good upkeep. They want to make sure, the tenants pay, all these different things. So they want to give you a good name as well. So therefore, hire a property manager. What's the problem? Hire a property manager. You pay them a percentage. Very good. Right? But what's the problem? What's the problem over here? Still have to worry about that. How do I know the property manager is trustworthy? No offense to anybody who's ever been a property manager. Or everyone who lives in the prairies. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyway, the point is that, if a person has a lot of property and it's in a lot of places, he's going to be worried. He's 100% going to be worried here. How am I going to get there? How am I going to be able to watch them? Right? How am I going to manage them? It's going to take a lot of effort. Maybe it's going to take a lot of money to do that. But what's the person's purpose in life? Purpose in life is what? To learn. It's to learn Torah, right? By a Jew and non-Jew. We'll see by these Noahide laws, right? They have to learn what applies to them. But as the Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, what are we doing in this world? What's our purpose? Lisanei Gal Hashem, to get benefit from God, because God created this world, can't be for Him. God has no needs. First of the 13 principles of Maimonides, right? Of the Rambam, God is absolute. If God is absolute by definition, He's not lacking anything. If He's not lacking anything, He's got no needs. If He has no needs, why did He create the world? It cannot be for Him. It must be created for us. Now, we have to know how to enjoy it, right? We have to learn about it, what our purpose is. All these things, that's true. That's very true. What's the problem? The problem is we get distracted in this world, right? We get totally distracted. And there are many good things out there that are a lot of fun. And we mentioned this many times. It's a lot of fun. The problem is in 2 weeks, or actually, next week's Torah portion, Parshas Toldos, we're going to learn about Esav and Yaakov, right? Yaakov was the Ish Oilim. He sat in tents. What does that mean? He learned Torah. Esav, they say, the Medrash brings down that he was 1,000 times greater, mind-wise, than Yaakov
Potentially.
Was. Now, that's hard to understand, right? Because before they were bar mitzvah, you couldn't tell the difference between Esav and Yaakov. But that's not even the point. The point is that Esav went after his heart. He went after desires, right? So he says, I'm about to die, right? I'm about to die. Give me some of that red stuff, right? What was the red lentils that Yaakov was cooking? Who died? Abraham. His grandfather died. Why are lentils round? I mean, that's the way they're made. But why do you eat round things when a person's in mourning? What does a round thing mean? Life cycle, right? So therefore Esav comes in from pillaging, doing all kinds of terrible things, murder, pillaging, immorality, all of them combined. So what happens? He comes in and says, I'm starving, I'm about to die. He says, give me some of that red stuff. So Yaakov says, okay, but I want you to sell me your birthright. He goes, I'm about to die. What do I care about my birthright? Now you have to understand that Esav grew up in the house of Yitzchak,
Isaac.
right? He saw angels. He understood what spirituality was. Now, how can he be such a fool and say, fine, give me some of that red stuff. I'll sign on the dotted line. He makes him swear. He signs. He shovels it in. As it's brought down, he said, give me some of this red stuff. Like he just shoveled it in. Like I've seen a number of people eat. Like there's no tomorrow. Just like take a vacuum.
Buffets.
They take a vacuum cleaner and suck it in, right? Nonetheless, he despises his birthright. Now, let's understand. Esav is willing, as my Rebbe says Mori Rebbe, Arav Agon Moshe Machlita, it should be well, brings down in Tam Vadas, commentary on Chumash, and he says the following. He says, good old Uncle Esav was willing to give up his spiritual world, his portion of the world to come. Don't think he didn't understand what spirituality was. He understood very well, but he was willing to give it up for a bowl of lentils. Now, we're going to make it very graphic. So, someone willing to give up their portion of the world to come, for some soup, forget about soup, right? Forget about, the idolatry of today, food, right? That people make it into idolatry. They're eating lunch. What am I going to eat for dinner, right? When I was growing up, so I grew up as a child among adults. And that's what I heard adults say. People say, come on, not everybody is so shallow. Okay, I'm telling you what I heard with my own ears. You can tell me these people might have been shallow. Maybe. But all I heard growing up was food. That's what people spoke about. What I'm going to eat today, where I'm going tomorrow. Now, you want to tell me everybody's like that? No. I'm not going to say everybody's like that. I saw it with my own eyes. So people can say, you didn't see it. Okay, I didn't see it. But I saw it with my own eyes. I heard it with my own ears. Right? Mm-hmm. So therefore, what? Food is an important thing. They want to think by Esav. Food is such an important thing. Okay, he's saying, I'm starving. You got to give me food. But he's willing to give up his spiritual portion in the world to come for a bowl of lentils. Now, today, is someone willing to do that, for clams, shrimp, and lobster, any of these other things? Doesn't really matter to them because they don't really believe in the next world, right? But that's a separate issue. We're not even going to go there. What's the point? The point is they'll waste time, and I mentioned this many times, persons on their smartphone 4 hours a day, right? I'm not going to go through the statistics. We know what the statistics are, right? Weeks, days, right? Days, weeks that a person over a lifetime is going to waste, to watching things. 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there, an hour here, whatever it is. And they're willing to give up their olam haba, their portion in the next world, for whatever video they see, for whatever ball game they watch, for whatever, so you're going to say, we're no different than Esav. Esav knew a heck of a lot more than we do. I don't think there's any question. But how could he give up? How could he forfeit that portion and sign on the dotted line and swear? Because he was too entrenched in the physical. Now, the major difference between Christians and Jews is that Christians believe everything in physicality is forbidden, right? We say we live in the physical world. We have to sanctify the physical world. We have to know how to sanctify it. King David himself says we're here for 70 years. If we have strength, we're here for 80 years. So a person's here 70 years, 80 years, even longer. What do they do? What did they accomplish? So a person can say, so big deal. I watched this, or I did that, or I watched for an hour, or half an hour, this, that. That means you sat there and vegetated. That means you saw all these, maybe you took bathroom breaks so you didn't see the commercials, whatever it is. But you definitely
now we have PVRs, you can pause and fast forward.
Right? But you probably saw things you shouldn't see. You probably heard things you shouldn't hear. It has an effect. We mentioned many times, has an effect on the soul. So now a person's going to say, but it's enjoyable. But I have a lot of fun, even if I watch the CFL. I have a lot of fun. That's once. I'm gonna say how many times I make fun of the CFL. That's once, right? But the person's going to say it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable to watch football, soccer, whatever, whatever it is. So it's enjoyable, you're right. But at the expense of what? At the expense that it has a negative effect on my soul. Because I don't know too many people who watch sports on TV, or whatever the case is, and become better people.
The World Series is on, yeah.
I understand, but I'm saying, I don't, just like I heard a great rabbi say, if I would send my kids, if there was a guarantee, I would send my kids to university and they would come out more moral than they went in, then I'd be willing to send them. But obviously that's not the case today, and it certainly wasn't the case in my day, right? Many years ago, right? Certainly not the case. So then we can ask the question, so why is it people today or past generations would be willing to give that up? right? Willing to give up that spirituality for the sake of a bowl of lentils, for the sake of a little bit of fun. Either they just don't care, right? They don't care, and therefore it doesn't really matter. You can't prove there's a spiritual world because my Rebbe said no one's ever been in that world and come back, right? So I've never met anyone and been in that world, but we know through out-of-body experiences, videos people have made, they all say the same thing, right? They all say exactly the same thing. The soul hovers over the body, exactly what Kabbalah says, goes towards this great light, but they see things as absolutely clear. So now there was a story. Someone who came back to the body, a secular Israeli got clocked over the head with a beam, on a work site. That, she came back to her senses, afterwards had this out-of-body experience. Secular Israeli took her 7 years. 7 years to come to Torah and mitzvahs. Why? Because the soul gets cooled off. Now they want to, after going through rehabilitation, all that, say, wow, saw this relative of mine, Torah, this, that, and they all calmed her down. They said, come on, don't be a fanatic. What are you going to do? Come on, Torah, what do you know about Torah? It took 7 years. It took 7 years. That's why it's clear. If people would say, God would do a miracle for me right now, I'd change my life. And what's the answer to that? Of course you wouldn't. You're not going to change your life overnight, even if you see it's an absolute miracle, because then you get cooled off. And people are going to convince you, come on, maybe it really wasn't a miracle. And even if it was, so what? What has God done for you lately? Etc. But again, if what they say, just as an example, while I'm on this tirade, just by example, if a person even had a question, they had a doubt if the next world exists or not, right? So let's say for argument's sake, the Torah is true, Kabbalah is true, and all that. Now, would you be willing to play Russian roulette over here? Take a gun. I don't recommend it, but take a gun. It's got 6 bullets. You got 6 bullet holes, right? 6, 8, depending on the type of gun, right? Whatever it is, you put in 1 bullet. Put in 1. You got a 1 in 6 chance, 16%. 16.6666%. I was good at math at one time. Till I got to geometry, I had to see things in a different dimension. Then it all went south. But okay, now, person takes the gun, they put it to their head. How many people are going to shoot? 16% chance. 17%, 16.66, we'll round up. 17% chance. Right? I guarantee it was a 10% chance no one's going to pull the trigger. No one's going to pull the trigger. Why not?
No one with a sane mind, that's for sure.
Yeah. Even the biggest wise guy is not going to pull the trigger. Unless he's on drugs. 1 second. Unless he's on drugs. Right? Or something like that. Or someone dares him. Oh, you dare me? Something else. Right? But a 10% chance. Even a 10% chance. I would go even further. Let's say there were 20 bullets. 20 bullet holes. Right? And there's only one. 5% chance. But there's a 5% chance. I don't think people are going to pull the trigger a 5% chance. Now, someone is very smug and they say, oh, the next world. Someone told me, yeah, I've been married to a non-Jew 35 years. Now I'm not worried about, nothing's happened to me so far. Right? So I said, but what about the next world? What about payment in the next? Oh, I'm not worried about that. Like they know everything about nothing. Oh, I'm not worried about that. And what if it's a 5% chance? I'm right. A 5% chance. Now, someone may say, I'll take that 5% chance. You know why? Because they think it's all make-believe anyway. They don't see it in front of their face. They don't, they don't see it. They don't fathom it. So if they don't fathom it, they don't see it as a real thing, fine. But if I have a gun, if that person has a gun, and there's 1 bullet in it, they got a 5% chance, they'll say, well, that's different. That's in front of my face. That could blow my head off. My brains. It could blow my brains out. True? Right? That's true, but they'll say I have something in my hands. Right? So I say, okay, intellectually, maybe I could prove 40, 50% why there is a portion of the world to come. Why there is a spiritual world. But you're not going to hear the argument. Why? Because it's spiritual. Right? Because it's Torah. This is something physical. I got a gun in my hand. Right? But again, I would say if there's even a 5% or 10% chance that what it says is going to happen to a person in the next world and there's going to be punishment, whether in this world or the next world, or both, who's willing to take the chance? Right? Who'll be willing to take the chance? Yeah, you had a question before or a comment?
Yeah, Rabbi. I mean, when you're talking about Esau and you're talking about, Russian roulette, I mean, in both those instances, though, there is a clear point of acceptance of the end result. Okay, there's a profaning or a pulling of the trigger in the Russian roulette case. Somebody who just relaxes and their intent is not always. But I have seen too often, like we've saw a lot of in the last several months, a lot of anti-vaxxers out there, and the point being that they're calling, the they're calling it, experimental toxin and poison.
Hey, wait a
and,
minute.
And
this isn't controversial issues.
okay, I understand, but the question is, the point is that there's a clear decision to pull the trigger, even if it's a 1 in 10 chance on somebody that would do something. Whereas Esau was also given the question from Yaakov, give me your birthright. He knew what he was getting into. There's a culpability there before Hashem that I think is not there with somebody who just unwinds maybe a little too much.
Why not? Why is there no culpability? The Torah tells me.
I'm not saying no culpability. Hashem knows, but there is a deliberate pulling of the trigger in the 1 in 10% scenario, or when Esau was told, sell me your birthright, he legitimately sold it.
I understand. I'm going to be very blunt here. And if people don't like it, well, that's just who I am, right? The 615th commandment. The 615th commandment is don't be a moron. Now, why do I say don't be a moron? Not to you, right? But in general, because the Torah tells me clear. Remember, the Bible is the most selling book in the history of man. Now, it's had a lot of different translations, mistranslations and all that. But the Bible states absolutely clear that if I do the right thing, that's very good. There'll be reward, right? When we say the second paragraph of the Shema, what's the reward? I'm going to get rain, right? I'm going to have food. Everything's going to be good. And what happens if I do the wrong thing? If I do the wrong thing, and God says many times, if you do the wrong thing, there's payback. There 100% is going to be payback. There's reward and punishment. The Torah makes that clear. Now, people could say, well, how do I know that's true? How do I know that? Oh, how do I know that's true? You want proof why the Torah is true? That's not what you're asking. You're going to ask, what are they really asking? They're going to say, hey, there are rich people. They do terrible things. I don't see them getting punished. Right? I see righteous people suffer, and they're keeping all these minutiae of laws, and I see them getting punished, and I see they have it hard. Where's the justice? Right? Okay, so read the end of the book of Job, and then get back to me. But the point is, there are repercussions. The Torah tells me there are repercussions. Now,
yeah, but didn't you share before that Hashem, or I think, Hashem always deals with people where they're at. You can't hold them accountable for something they may in the future do, right?
No, you're right. That's different. We learned that out from Yishmael. We learned that out in Parshas Lech Lecha, last week. We saw it last week because the verse says Basher Hu Sham, where he is right now.
Exactly.
And if we knew Hitler is the baby, we were allowed to kill him. He's not liable.
Right, but point being is that Esau knew when he was asked, sell me your birthright, he was doing it consciously, just like somebody who plays Russian roulette. They don't know where the bullet is, but they're pulling the trigger still.
Right. So what are you saying? In spiritual terms, people don't know. Right?
Well, there's a degree of innocence in I don't want to say ignorance is bliss, but there is a degree of innocence that Hashem knows is honest.
He knows their thoughts. God doesn't care if he grew up in the prairies or not. It just means he's going to be less liable. But what could somebody say? Someone could say, you know what? You want to try and convince me, and this is like a radical example, but you want to try and convince me there's a place called Italy. I don't believe there's a place called Italy. Now, before computers, before the internet, before anything else.
You had textbooks.
Have you ever read the Encyclopedia Britannica? I don't even know it still exists. Have you ever read the Encyclopedia Britannica on the subject of Italy? No, I just know there's no place of Italy. Even better, well, we'll age ourselves, go up 20, 30 years. Have you ever read a Wikipedia article about Italy? No, I just don't believe there's an Italy. Well, that doesn't mean you're all that educated. That doesn't mean, you could have a PhD, pilot higher and deeper. That doesn't really matter. But the point is, you are sticking your head as an ostrich in the ground. And what you're saying is, oh, I'm pretty convinced. Spirituality, that's not real. Oh, really? Really? I got a single proof that spirituality is real. What's the single proof? I would say go to one of the Torah giants of the generation. Any Torah giant you want, speak to them for 5 minutes. They're not going to sit there, bring you all the proofs, whatever. Just look at their face. Now, when you look at their face, you tell me they're like everybody else. Anyone who's ever been in the presence, which I've been merited, I've had this merit for a long time to see great people. When you look at them in the face, it's a totally different world. Totally different world. Now, you want to tell me somebody like that, okay, they're human. They do things like animals, like we all do. But essentially, they're Malch Hashem. They're like an angel. Now, does that mean they're perfect? Nobody's perfect in this world, right? Nobody's perfect. But when you look at somebody at that stature, when you look at them, you cannot say with a straight face. You could lie, but you cannot say this is just like anybody else. There's no way. Why? You hear them speak, you see them act, you just see the countenance on their face. How can it be? How can it be they can say there's no such thing as spirituality? Right? There's no such thing. You can say, oh, it's aesthetics, it's this, it's that. It's not the same. Right? It's not the same because when a person learns a lot of Torah and they keep a lot of mitzvahs, it has an effect on who they are. It has an effect on their stature. Has an effect on their face, their countenance. So therefore you could say you're right. My problem is, I got a lot of problems. One of them is that people make statements all the time without looking into the facts. They don't look into the facts. They say, I can't believe this would be true. Have you ever studied anything in your life? No. Right? About Judaism? No. So how do you know? Right? And the bottom line is, it doesn't fit my world outlook. Right? I don't want to be inconvenienced. Right? I got people at least to admit that. Fine. It doesn't mean the Torah is not true. It doesn't mean there's no such thing as spirituality. Right? But you're going to say, but it's not the same as pulling the trigger because God's not opened your eyes. Right? If you see things in spiritual terms, if you had proper fear of heaven, you'd be afraid to get out of bed every single day. You'd be afraid to say God's name because of the power of the name. If God would open your eyes in spiritual terms and just show you certain things, I think it would be a different world. But he said he doesn't. Right? He's not going to open my eyes. He's not going to show me that. Maybe that's true. Maybe he won't do a miracle for you, and even if he did, you'll try and figure out how it was done. Right? But even if that would be the case, the person's not going to change. Why not? Because their heart is hard. Their heart is hard as a rock. And that's one of the things my Rebbe says many times. We have to be afraid. Because if we're not going to change, if we are stuck in our ways, that means God could harden our hearts. That means it's going to be impossible to change. Remember, the Gemara says that God created the evil inclination, but he also created an antidote. What's the antidote? Torah. But even with Torah, if you don't have heavenly help, you can't overcome the evil inclination. There's no possible way. That's how powerful it is. Some more, some less, whatever it is. That's how powerful it is. Does his job very well. Doesn't need me to congratulate him. He does a great job trying to make us sin. Right? So, but again, if you take someone at the highest level, you take someone like Esau, grew up in the house of Isaac. How in the world could he go after his heart? go after his head. And we do know that when he died, his head went into the cave of the patriarchs, not his body. Why? Because his body destroyed him. His head, though, had the ability to do the right thing, but he got carried away. His heart led him astray. Now, someone's going to say, if you want to talk about somebody like that, grew up in the house of Isaac, there's no hope for us. There's no hope for us. Watch CFL as much as you want. There's no hope. There's no hope. What are we going to do? I'm just going to give in. I'm going to kick back. I'm going to sip my pina coladas. Right now, not everything's going to be necessarily forbidden, per se. Right? By a non-Jew, it's easier because they don't have an obligation to learn Torah. By a Jew, at least for a guy, it's a lot worse. You're going to say, but he's kicking back, so what? But imagine what he could have learned in that time. Imagine, if a person watching 4 hours on their smartphone a day, and they have weeks, months, that they wasted throughout their life. Imagine what they could have accomplished. Imagine if they could have written books. Imagine how much of, they could have gone through. But you're going to say, I'm here to enjoy life. Doesn't God want you to enjoy life? He wants you to enjoy life. 100% wants you to enjoy life the way he wants. Not the way we want. We have to do what he wants. We have to put our psyche, right, into God's psyche. Meaning we mentioned way back when we spoke in Pirkei Avos, it says, do the will what God wants. Not what you want. Not Torah made up in the mind of, in my own mind. Right? In the American mind, in the prairie's mind, anywhere else, gonna make up Torah the way I think it is. Why? God doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what I think. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. He gave the Torah. He passed it down to Moshe. Moshe passed it down to us. So we have to keep it. But isn't this world a world of distraction? Right? The Ramchal says a number of times, world of distraction. Didn't God make it a world of distraction? Right? Did he want us to get distracted? No. Does he allow us to get distracted? Yes. But how could someone give up something so precious? See, what happened, I heard Rabbi Tatz once say, and he should be well, Rabbi Kiva Tatz, tremendous rabbinic scholar, and he said, during World War II, Hitler just killed everybody. Anyone who had Jewish blood, right, he killed. Now, in this day and age, he's saying in this day and age, when, we're not going to have a choice. We're not going to have a choice in the future where people are going to say, okay, kiss the cross or die.
He's so diversified.
That's not going to be the trial. Why won't it be the trial, says Rabbi Tatz? One very simple reason. Who's going to succeed? He's not going to put us in a situation we can't handle. Right? At least, we have to believe. Even if we can't handle it. Right? But God knows that we could handle it. Problem is, we live in such a weak generation. 90% of the Jewish people, don't even know how to say Shema Yisrael. They don't know anything, right? Grew up as a potato farmer in Idaho. No offense. Anyone who grew up as a potato farmer who lives in Idaho, regardless of that, they're still going to be liable. They're still going to be liable to a certain extent, right? Maybe, depending on what they've done, maybe not like they did it on purpose, but they don't get a free pass, right? There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a free pass. But, people say a lot of things. Oh, come on, you really believe this? You really believe that? Let me ask you, have you ever done any research? Have you ever studied? Have you ever studied to see if it's true or not? Now, people are so open-minded till their brains fall on the floor. I met one person in the last 30 years who said, point blank, if I look into Judaism, this was a Jew, married to a non-Jew. He said, if I look into Judaism and I find out it's true, and I have to change my life, I'm not willing to do it. That's the only person I've ever met that was intellectually honest. I've never met anyone who's been intellectually honest except this person. Now, if you tell me, I don't think it's true, and I have proof that it's not true, let's hear. Let's hear. But they're not saying that. They're saying, I want to do what I want to do, and that's it. You don't have a say in the matter. I don't care about God, this, that. I'm going to do what I want. That doesn't mean the Torah is not true. You want to say, I think you're backwards. I think you're living all these antiquated laws. Forget the Noahides. They're toast because Jews don't want them. Non-Jews don't want them. What are you crazy? Going to be ostracized? Like I had a student that was living somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Texas, 3,000 people. Population, 3,000 people. Left the church, no friends, no social life, no barbecues. Why not? Because everything revolved around the church. But he said, Rabbi, I can't go back. There's nothing for me to go back to. His kids suffered, being in school and all that, whatever, until he was able to move. But someone told me point blank, and this is no joke. You can say this person was shallow, whatever, but I think it's going to be a common answer. Someone asked me, why would a non-Jew be interested in converting to Judaism? Right? Most people know I deal with converts, right? I deal with Noahides also. So I said, let me ask a better question. Why would a secular Jew want to become an Orthodox Jew? In my case, like me. Why would someone choose that? They're like, okay, that's a good question. And I said to them, the reason is because most people in this case, whether the secular Jew becomes religious, whether it's a non-Jew who wants to be a Noahide or a convert or a potential convert, JIT, whatever you want to call them, and then Jew in training, is because they're searching for truth. That's why they're coming. That's why they're seeking out. That's why they're looking into things, because they've been lied to by the church. And when I said that, the person looked at me straight in the face, no joke. I can see the person's face. I remember the day like it was yesterday. And they said, come on, get real. Who's really doing that? Now, that's what the person said. Now,
Wow.
You could tell me a person like that, very shallow. Maybe. Maybe. But I would venture to say, I'll go on record as we're recording this. I will go on record and say, I think a lot of people are going to give that answer. You know why? Because they don't believe in nothing. They believe in absolutely zero. Tomorrow night, everyone knows, at least in the States, Halloween, see all these posts, when am I going to wear this, wear that? It's a pagan thing. 100% it's a pagan. No, just dressing up. What's the big deal? Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I've seen so many justifications in this.
It's trick or treat. It's a lot of fun, blah, blah, blah. Right? Now, I could sit here and be here till tomorrow saying why it's a pagan thing, why I can't celebrate it. Not as a Jew, not as a non-Jew. Right? But someone said, come on, let them have fun. Let their kids experience. When I was in camp many years ago, I had somebody tell me, 15 years old, said you have to experience everything once. You have to see the world. You have to experience everything once. And I said, I don't think that's true. I definitely believe it's not true. Obviously we know things that are detrimental to us. But he said, why do you think it's true? I said, well, I'll give you an example. I said, go outside the bunk. I said, take about 60 steps backwards. I said, then run as fast as you can into the wall of the bunk. Now, I wouldn't do that. You know why I wouldn't do that? Because I don't want to break every bone in my body. And I know I don't have to bang my head against the wall till it bleeds to know it's a bad thing. There are plenty of things out there that are bad. I have to experience everything. I understand what the person meant. He didn't want to go that far, to that extreme. I definitely get it. But at the same time, so where is most of the world today holding? The biggest question I always say people may ask, biggest serious question is, do I put ketchup or mustard on my hot dog? Maybe relish. Oh, relish. I didn't think. People don't care about nothing. You tell me, they have their causes. They have different things that they're into, whatever. But the bottom line is they do whatever they want. They do whatever their heart tells them to do. Right? In other words, their mores, their morals, they can change like the drop of a hat. You know why it changes? Doesn't matter why. It can change for any reason. That's why when you look at moral relativism, means reality is moral, is relative. Why is it relative? Because it can change generation. Every year could be a few generations, right? That's how fast things are moving. But things 80, 90 years ago, my parents' generation, would have been unheard of. Doesn't mean they didn't do it. Would have been unheard of to do. In today, total mitzvah. You talk about, now it'll be a little more controversial. You talk about gays, homosexuality, this and that. Wasn't heard of. Swept under the carpet, right? Kept behind, in the closet. Don't say anything, whatever. It's all going to come out now. Now it's crazy. Now how do you know you don't want to be transgender? And your kids will be reading books. Johnny has 2 fathers. Mary has 3 mothers. And that's the norm. So where did things change? Where did things change over here? You're going to say, we got more sophisticated. We became more open-minded. The government turned leftist. All these things. And there are a million reasons, right? Social scientists can tell you, why things changed. But the bottom line is the Torah didn't change. And the Torah says clear, this is forbidden, this is not forbidden. Now you tell me someone's born a certain way. Yeah, and a doctor once told me, yeah, there's a gene. They can isolate the gene for homosexuality. So I said, let's say that's true. There are a lot of bad genes out there. Anger genes, miserly genes, not sharing genes. We got a lot of bad genes. So you want to say what every bad character trait comes from a specific gene? The Torah tells me clear that, in the beginning of the book of Genesis, that man is going to cleave to his wife. Doesn't say he's going to cleave to another man. And then we get Leviticus chapter 18, right? All these laws about immorality, which mentions also homosexuality. So now you want to say, but that's, we're not going to say it's the norm, but it has to be accepted. You can't discriminate against them. Different things. We hold it's forbidden. The Torah holds it's forbidden. What's changed? Our outlook has changed. The world has changed. Why has the world changed? So there are many different reasons possibly why that is. Torah hasn't changed. There's a new reality.
Baruch Hashem.
There's a new reality. What do? Homosexual couple comes to your Orthodox synagogue. They want to pray there. You got a problem. It's not about being politically correct. You have to come out against it. You can empathize with them. This and that. You cannot say it's okay. There's no possible way. Right? Just like you cannot say an intermarriage is okay. Or go to an intermarriage. Like, someone I went to yeshiva with, went to his sister's wedding, an intermarriage, and he said, but I was there on the protest. I said, you were dancing the whore on the protest. You were eating your kosher food on the protest. Now, I understand why, he had to go, or he thought he had to go. Family pressure, many things. Okay, so what? Is the Torah true or it's not true? Now you got to make amends. What do I have to make amends? It's the single greatest catastrophe in the history of man today. Right? In the history of the Jewish people. No one's putting a gun to someone's head and saying, marry this non-Jew. They're doing it willingly, and they're throwing out their Judaism in the garbage. Because they don't know anything about it. They don't know why they should marry someone Jewish. They have no idea. Right? They grew up in the prairies as a potato farmer watching the CFL
the boiled
3
frog
times.
routine, right?
Right. So they're doing all these things. They don't know. They don't know, but they may talk a good game, and they may say, come on, the Torah is primitive. The laws are primitive. Does God really care? If I take some bad grapes out of a good cluster of grapes on Shabbos, and it's forbidden because of selection, you really think God cares? Well, it would first of all, it'd be a Torah prohibition, and you get the death penalty if there was a Sanhedrin, a Jewish Supreme Court in Jerusalem. Well, I think God would care. But why would he care about minutia? Why would he care about so many of these details? Oh, you want to learn? Let's have a discussion. But nobody's holding there. Very few people are holding there. Why is that? Because they want to do what they want to do. And therefore, they're willing to give up their portion in the world to come. Right back to our topic here a little bit. They're giving away their portion of the world to come for a bowl of lentils. They're not looking into things. They don't care about looking into things. They don't want to isolate themselves. They don't want to isolate themselves from family. They don't want to isolate themselves from people they work with. They want their life to be easy. They want to be like everybody else. Well, isn't that, Hanukkah coming up soon, right? Number of weeks. Isn't that what the Greeks wanted the Jews to do? Yeah, they came out with certain decrees, right? They didn't want them to learn Torah, right? They didn't want them to do bris milah, circumcision, right? Other things. But they didn't want to annihilate them. They wanted them to be like them. So Moshe Mendelssohn comes along.
Melting pot.
Many, many years later, 1,000 years later, and says, be a Jew in your house, do whatever you want. Outside, be like everybody else. So what happens when we open the ghetto? What happens when the Jews are not among their own people, keeping Torah and mitzvahs? They intermarry, they assimilate, it's over. Every single time, this is what's happened. So that being the case, they don't know what they're giving up. They don't know what they're giving up. Why? I understand why they say, come on, I don't want to be different. I want to be like everyone else. What? This doesn't speak to me. This doesn't, the old antiquated laws. We can agree to disagree. Rubbish, as the English would say. Give me an argument. Show me. Show me where it's not true. Right? But most people won't get in that discussion, as we mentioned many times, for one very simple reason. They just want to be left alone. They want to do what they want to do. They don't want the repercussions. Well, sorry to say, the best-selling book in the history of man says there's reward and punishment. Says there's going to be payback. Whether you believe it or not, that's what it says. And it makes clear, do this, don't do that. Don't do this, do that. Right? Many things we're obligated to do as Jews, and some things we're obligated, that non-Jews are not allowed to do, or that they're allowed to do. Very good. But you're not giving any arguments why it's not true. You just want to do what you want to do. But how can it be? Right? And that would be the question, which we already answered. Right? But the question is, how can it be? Someone is that shallow, and they'll say, I don't, the next world, I'm not worried about that. Why not? You seem pretty convinced there's no such thing as the next world. Okay, so Coffman would say, put up or shut up. Let me see. Show me why there's no next world. Show me where the fault is in the Torah. And the argument is, I don't care. I don't believe in it. You can't convince me. I could convince you. You don't want to listen. Right? But what's the cognitive dissonance? First of all, they don't want to change. Right? They may be in an intermarriage. Other things they don't want to change. That's the bottom line. And they're going to say, but there's no beauty in Torah. It's all about minutia. It's all about all these detailed laws. Where don't you see the beauty? You don't want to see the beauty. You want to justify what you do. Okay. Right? But that, there's no justification. There's zero justification. So I'd be a lot happier if people would just admit the truth and just say, I don't want to be inconvenienced. It's not about truth. Right? I just want to do what I want to do. And that's it. Like someone told me, 2 non-Jews in my estimation. Right? The father's Jewish, mother's not. Right? So therefore, the child's not a Jew. Marries another non-Jew. Right? They marry another non-Jew. So when they get married, they don't even go through it. They go through basically justice of the peace. Right? No God mentioned. So someone says, see, no God mentioned. Okay. That was my answer. Okay. But what was I thinking? They're not Jewish anyway. They don't need to mention God. They don't need to go through a ceremony. By non-Jews, we're going to see, my class on the Noahide laws, we're going to see 2 non-Jews, that live together, common law marriage. That's marriage according to the Torah. One of them walks out, that's divorce. Do you have to go through a justice of the peace? No. Do you have to mention God? No. No mention of anything. You live together, that's marriage. That's it. You don't need anything else. Right? So someone's going to try and get under my skin, and they're going to say, look, they didn't mention God. So what? Well, they didn't mention God. They don't need to. I didn't go that far. I just said, okay. So they didn't mention God. Big deal. That doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. Why? They don't have to mention God. By Noahide laws, they don't have to mention. Right? But it just boggles the mind that that's how far desire goes. I'm not going to give up this. I'm not going to give up that. No one's going to tell me what to do, X, Y, or Z. I'm not going to listen to rabbis, priests, this, that. No one's going to tell me what to do. That's it. They want their freedom. And the Mishna8 Pirkei Avos much later. Much later. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but whatever, much later says, who's the only true free person? The only true free person is the one that learns Torah. Why is he truly free? Because he's doing exactly what God says, and he's getting all the benefit. He's getting all the benefit of what Torah can bring. Now, it doesn't mean life's going to be easy, right? No question about it. That's not what it means. Meaningful, right? So you said in Nefesh Chaim, by Chaim of Volozhin, first chapter, it says, don't think your actions don't matter. Our actions matter 100%. They matter in the spiritual world, they matter in the physical world, and what's and I think in chapter 2, chapter 3, later on in the first gate, it says over there, you want to see how far it goes? Adam and Eve ate from the tree. God gave them one command. Don't eat from the tree of knowledge. What do? They ate from the tree of knowledge. What did it bring to the world? Death. Is death a Jewish concept? Never a Jewish concept. Never should have been. Right? So you're going to say, big deal. Who cares what I do? What do you mean, who cares what you do? What you do is repercussions. You can have repercussions now. Can have repercussions later. Tell somebody, tell a woman whose husband cheated on her and say, no, there are no repercussions. What do you mean there are no repercussions? Of course there are repercussions. How can there be repercussions? Unless you don't get caught or whatever. Right? But people think, lace dying. There's no judgment. Nothing's going to happen. So you're right. Back to your original thing. You're right. Someone's got a gun in their hand and it's 1 out of 10. Right? 1 out of 10 chance. Most people are not going to take the chance. I'm going to say even if it's 1 out of 5. Most people are not going to take the chance. So you're going to say, but in spiritual terms? What about in spiritual terms? Everybody be willing to take the chance. Why would they be, there are 80,000 different religions who say this one's right, that one's right, the other one's right. I've never met anyone been in that world and come back. But I would give you one proof. One proof. They say, okay, go to Google, Rabbi Dr. Google, and put in the space bar out-of-body experiences. And compare and contrast. People that talk about what happened when they were clinically dead. Jew, non-Jew, woman, man, child, doesn't matter. They're all going to say the same thing. Their soul hovered over the body. They saw the body, they heard everything, but they couldn't say anything. Nobody could hear them. They felt like absolute clarity, truth, this, that. They all say the same thing. Now, some may say, I saw JC. Some may say, I saw someone else, whatever it is. But they all agree the soul came out of the body, right? Now, that's exactly what Kabbalah says, right? And Kabbalah came way before Christianity, well before Christianity, right? So, it came to us first. So the Hindus have their ideas, others have their ideas, but they just destroy a lot of things that we say. Maybe some things they agree on, doesn't really matter, right? But the point is, how could you look at these videos? And they're all across the spectrum. Black, white, Chinese, who knows, whatever, it doesn't matter. They all say the same thing. So I would say if they all say the same thing, don't you think? Maybe there's a chance what they're all saying corroborates the same thing. That there's a soul that hovers over the body and that they see their life flash before their eyes and they feel embarrassment of things that they've done. That's clear. I'm not making up anything there. People want to call me on it. Look it up. Look up when people have out-of-body experiences. They all say the same thing. Now, I would say, if that's true, and there's even a small percentage, let's say that's true, and that there's a soul, don't you think maybe it's a spiritual world? Maybe. You'd have to entertain that possibility, right? We can get philosophical, but you're right, they're going to DVR it. They're not going to be interested, in more than 10 seconds, 15 seconds, right? Someone wanted me to explain to them, in a 30-second soundbite, how do we know there's life after death? So I said, you know what? I'm not going to waste my time. I'll send you a link to a video. You want to watch it, watch it. That's your choice. I'm not going to sit there and explain, like someone came to Hillel and said, I want you to explain the whole Torah in 1 second, 1 foot. Shammai threw him out. Shammai threw him out. I don't have patience for this. Give me all the answers of, wisdom in 30 seconds. Because that's about my attention span. Come on. Nobody would do that. Nobody would do that. So, so when we think about it, we're not here that long. If we're not here that long in this world, don't you think we want to do the things that make the most sense, have the most meaning, right? So they'll say it's this religion, that religion, doesn't matter, right? People get meaning in other things. It doesn't mean that's what it is, right? 100%, it doesn't mean that's what it is. They'll quote unquote find meaning in it, but at the end of the day, what are they doing? They're killing time. They may be helping others. They'll get credit for that. they're giving charity. They may get credit for that, right? There's a little bit of truth in everything, also, but they're missing the bigger picture. They're missing the bigger picture.
What about time to digest? I mean, some of the Torah concepts, especially for us B'nai Noach, they're so lofty in the sense that
You're right.
what it's like a side of beef. We can't sit there and digest the whole thing in one session.
So I heard a class last
and I don't
week.
want to jump into another session without actually digesting what.
I understand. I heard a class last week or a few weeks ago by Scharia Wallerstein. Should be well. Started Ornava, whatever, the great speaker. And one of the things he said was, he was talking about procrastination. I spoke about this 2 weeks ago in my video on the Parsha. And he said a very powerful thing. He said, people have to, people think about things, philosophical things, and they don't do anything. Right? People say, well, if I don't really understand 100%, how can I keep Torah mitzvahs? I don't really understand. So he gave an example. Imagine a guy is going on a plane. And he says, but how can I go on a plane? I don't understand thermodynamics. I don't understand physics, right? It's going to take me, 10, 15 years to really understand it properly, right? So what is the steward or stewardess going to say? You got 5 minutes to get on the plane. Either get on the plane or you're going to miss the plane. They don't care if you know thermodynamics, you don't know thermodynamics, right? You want to know how everything works? Forget it. You're going in a tin can. That's what it's like. You're going in a tin can. You're going from A to B. Right? From this place to that place. What do you care how it works? You just want to make sure you get there safely. That's all that matters. Right now, a person could say, and you make a very good point, a person can say, but I don't, I have this question, as Rabbi Wallerstein said, I have this question about God. Does God, can God see through a black hole? Does God really know, like the Matrix? He knows the thoughts of everybody in all 1 second. Right? But I have to learn Jewish philosophy. I have to read the Kuzari. Right? You're probably going to do that next. Right? I have to learn the Kuzari. I have to, go through Maimonides' Guide to Perplexed. Right? I have to read through that. Then I'll come back and then I'll think. So what did Rabbi Wallerstein say? He says, yeah, you're going to be busy your whole life thinking, never do anything. Now, you're going to say, well, it's a leap of faith. Got to have a leap of faith over here. No, we believe with knowledge. That the Torah is true. But you're right. There are a lot of things we have to learn. There are a lot of things we have to digest, but I have to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. You could think many things in philosophical terms and never do anything. You're going to say, or somebody will say, not you, somebody will say, come on, the Noahide laws, they're not in the Torah, right? I made this claim before. They're not in the Torah. They're extrapolated by the rabbis in the Torah. Because I brought down, the Rambam says, that the Noahide laws were given to Cain. And then Noah added one of them. And then he passed it down. You're going to say, but that's not in the Torah. Okay, it's an oral law. Question is, you got to believe in oral law. But that's not the point. So someone said, what? Don't you believe? So someone called me on it. And they said, you don't believe it's extrapolated from the Torah? How are you going to give this class in Noahide laws? I said, of course it's extrapolated from the Torah. I don't disagree with that. 100% I don't disagree with that. But I wanted to make people understand that it's not directly in the Torah. That's the claim. That was this troll we had. Oh, it's not in the Torah. Noahide laws are not in the Torah. Where does it come from? They're extrapolated from verses in the Torah. You're right. It's the Rabbanim. It comes from the rabbis, right? But really passed down from God to God to Adam, and Adam to Noah, right? It's passed down. So that it's not like the Noahide laws don't exist. The rabbis speak about them. We're going to say it comes from God. That's one of the things the Rambam says, which I don't think most Noahides do or are aware of. They have to believe and keep the Noahide laws because God passed it down. Because God gave the Torah to Moshe and passed it down to us. It's not enough just to say, well, these are laws that I would understand that make sense according to the Torah, which we're going to see that's not so clear, right? In the case of Noahide laws, we're going to speak about it, right? We're going to get there eventually, right? But the point over here is that even with that, it's complicated, right? It's extremely complicated. So, do you believe in oral law? You don't believe in oral law. They say, show me a source in the Torah. Again, there were 2 Torahs given in Mount Sinai. There's the written Torah, there's the oral Torah. You need both. We're not going to go into it now, right? I made a number of videos on Tanakh Talk. Look it up, right, about oral law. It's not a big game of telephone, this, that. Okay, either you believe it or you don't believe it. You don't want to believe it? Okay, so be a Karaite. You want to be a Karaite, be a Karaite. All 50,000 or less that exist in the world. Fine. But if it's not directly in the Torah, and we have to extrapolate, you have to extrapolate. Okay. I'm going to admit, it's going to be extrapolated. Rabbis are going to extrapolate. That's true. At the same time, it's not just, it's going to take a lifetime of work, to understand. I'll ask another question. Someone, you go to synagogue on Sukkot. You go to synagogue and you see a lot of Jews. Take my glass case here. This is my lulav here, right? So you see a lot of Jews during the service, during Hallel, those Thanksgiving psalms that we say, in every holiday, and you see them shaking the lulav like this, like that. They're shaking it backwards, shaking it to the side, they're shaking it up. So what does it mean? Ask most people a deeper level what it means. And this is what we do on Sukkot. Maybe they'll give a simple explanation. That what are we doing? We're shaking the lulav in order to show God's dominion in the world. God's dominion in this world, north, west, east, and south, and God's dominion above and below. But if you ask them deeper, what does it really mean? Most people probably don't know. Right? It's Kabbalah, it's a lot of things, whatever. But does that mean I'm not going to buy a lulav and an esrog and shake it on Sukkot? We can understand.
Such, yeah.
We can understand by matzah, going through the whole Seder, Passover Seder, right? And eating, all that matzah and understanding the exodus from Egypt and whatever. But you say, but how do I really know? And what does it really mean, the Exodus? What does it really mean coming out of Egypt, right? We extrapolate and we say everyone has their own Exodus from Egypt and what they go through and the difficulty and freedom. And what does freedom represent? It's not what the secular world say when they, before they show the 10 Commandments, Charlton Heston, and all that, before Passover, they say, oh, it's the underdog. It's the underdog going against these terrible Egyptians, and look what they did, and God saved. No, it's because there's an X factor. The X factor is God. Because if you would put in the supercomputer, the Jewish people in Egypt, how many times you put it in, and you put it in Madden's game box, right? You put it in that. How many times the Jewish people are going to come out? Zero. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu says to God, you want me to go to Egypt. Who am I to go? I don't speak so well. I have a lisp, I have this, that, all these different things. Why should I go with this deeper meaning? And not just showing humility. Moshe Rabbeinu looks outside. Moshe Rabbeinu sees that every nation has their own guardian angel. So he saw an angel of Egypt and an angel of the Jewish people intertwined like a double helix, like a DNA molecule. And comes along Moshe Rabbeinu and says, God, I got a problem. How can I go to Egypt? According to nature, Jewish people are never getting out. Jewish people are never getting out according to nature. So God says, Mo, says, don't worry. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about nature. I'm going to take the Jewish people out against nature. They're going to come out against nature. That's why I had to do all these miracles and everything else. It wasn't just Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to go and he was showing humility. Yeah, that's what it says on the surface. Right? But he understood according to the stars, and he understood how to read the stars. They're never coming out. Never. You know what never means? In a 5-letter word? What's a 5-letter word for never? Never. Never going to happen. No other nation ever escaped Egypt except the Jewish people. Now you're going to say, wow, the underdog. They have a chance. They have a chance to win over here. They don't have a chance to win. God said clear, they'll never get out. That's why God himself had to take them out. Not through an angel, not through anyone else. And God had to show his might to the world. He had to show his might to the Jewish people. He had to show his might to Egypt, but they're never getting out. It's never going to happen. Right? It's against nature. It's totally against nature. That's why God comes along and says, you don't have to worry. I'm going to take you out against nature. I'm above nature. That's how I work. Okay, that's a much deeper thing. It's a much deeper idea. And if the angels would have taken the Jews out, they also would have got sullied in the immorality of Egypt. There are a lot of things going on there, but we're not even going to get into that. So the person's going to say, but there's so many different explanations on the Exodus from Egypt. You Google it, you go to artscroll.com, hundreds, thousands of different Haggadahs, right? A lot, there's a lot of things going on. So you're going to say, but how could I ever keep Passover and clean like a maniac and do all this if I didn't understand all those 1,000 explanations? See, you know what that is? That's an excuse. I had somebody many years ago, I had a relative give my kids sweaters, and I said, oh, if it's made out of wool, I have to get it checked. I have to get it checked for shotness. What is shotness? Shotness means you're not allowed to wear something that's wool and linen together, right? If you see a suit that says all wool, you have to get it checked by someone who knows how to check. Make sure there's no linen in it. Why? Because Torah tells me you're not allowed to wear wool and linen. Very good. Now this person came along and says, why? So I said, it's a good question. I'm not really sure. It's probably a very deep answer, probably Kabbalah, right? But Torah says you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to wear it. But you can't give me an answer? I said, I could give you one. I could find one. But, he said, well, if you can't give me an answer, why would I want to keep it? Yeah. So good, we should have answers on the tip of our tongue. But let's say, so I said, okay, let's say we had 10 answers. And you don't like any of them. You're going to say, I'm not going to keep it? You're going to say you know better than God. Right? The Rambam's book, the Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide for the Perplexed, it was written in Arabic, philosophical language, translated into Hebrew, translated into English. Not an easy work to go through. The Rambam bends over backwards finding reasons why, for the mitzvahs in the Torah. Now, he was writing for that generation because people got caught up in philosophy, right? Aristotle and Socrates and all that. But no, who are the philosophers today? That book no one really learns, right? Who are the real philosophers today? Professors in university? No, I don't think so. There aren't too many philosophers today. So that book has really gone out of use. Most people don't learn it. But even so, he tries to understand rationale behind laws of the Torah, which 80% don't make rational sense. They don't make rational sense. Now, if I were to come up with a number of explanations, what could a person do? Person could have put up a defense mechanism and say, you know what? I don't like that answer. Okay, I got another answer. Maybe it's, maybe you like this one. No. What are they? They're going to knock off every single reason. Why? Because all they have to do is say, well, I don't like this. Nah, that can't be right. That doesn't make sense. Whatever. They could just throw out a block and say, if I say, well, that reason makes sense, then I say, okay, I found the reason that you like. Are you going to keep it? If it doesn't inconvenience me, maybe I'll keep it. But they probably won't. Why not? Because we're going to see also mitzvah goreres mitzvah. Person does the mitzvah, it's going to cause them to do more mitzvah. Person transgresses, cause them to do more transgression. But if they're on the, if they want to go up spiritually, yeah, that's going to be a problem for them. So therefore, they're going to say, oh, this doesn't, come on. You really think that's what God wants? You really think that's what it means? You really? Yeah, I do. And there's evidence for it, but you could knock off every single reason and just say, I don't have to keep it. Now, I don't think there are too many philosophers out there. You're right. There might be a few. Who might say, but, how can I really keep it if I don't fully understand it? And the bottom line is you have to keep it anyway. Doesn't matter if you fully understand it or not. We're not talking about going on blind faith. Right? If
you're also not talking about criminalizing or
no, you're right.
Outlawing.
You're right, but it's not that hard. I don't think it's that hard to potentially convince somebody, why the Torah is true. And how we know it's the same Torah today that it was way back when. And why there's a need for oral law. I don't think it's going to take that long for a person to see that. The question is that going to be enough for them to say, okay, now I'm willing to do? Because all you have to do is prove a certain percentage. Whatever that percentage is, and then even if we don't prove the rest, doesn't mean it can't be proven. There's this, the Aisha Torah does a great job. They have a discovery seminar, proving many different ways why the Torah is true, right? So, you do the follow-up, people are convinced. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to start doing. Now, their mind is now open to the fact that, wow, this makes a lot of sense. This must mean that, there must be a God, and there is logic to it. I did that in Tanakh Talk. I think I did 4 proofs, different ways of proving, God's existence and why the Torah must be true. All that. Went through a number of proofs. But I don't think most people are going to want to hear it. They're not looking into it. That's the whole point. They're not looking into it. But you say, well, how could I keep it if I don't really understand it? Okay. I'll give you a certain amount of time. Here are 4 or 5 videos. Here, watch these videos, get back to me. And see if this makes sense or not. So it doesn't mean you won't have questions, whatever, but a person could throw that out as a block. And they could say, but, I don't really fully understand it. Okay, so start learning. By a Jew, it's not all or nothing. Start learning. Start seeing if it may be true. And there'll be people still at square one. They won't get past square one. Why not? Because the repercussions are too great. Unless you're intellectually honest, which most people aren't. Right? But you want to tell me there's no proof? I can show you proof. I can show you proof. I don't want to hear it. I'm not interested. Okay, but don't tell me there's no proof. If you're not willing to look into it, most people stick their head in the sand. Right? You can see, this is one of my pet peeves. They stick their head in the sand, and that's what they do. It doesn't mean it's not true. But I think more often than not, now I could be wrong, but I think more often than not, people are using these things as a block. They'll say, what about the Holocaust? What about this? What about that? Okay, there are answers. You want to hear them? No, it's just the question I ask rabbis, make them fidget. You want to ask, evil and evil going wild and why righteous people suffer. It's a good question. It's an age-old question. It's a good question. You want to read a book, Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust? No, just a question I ask. So not really interested in an answer. Okay, I don't have to answer. I don't have to waste my time, right, with that. But if someone wants the information, it's out there. It's out there, but bottom line is people make excuses. They'll make excuses. Oh, it's not this. Oh, it's not that. Oh, okay. You want to have a discussion? Have a discussion. You don't want to have a discussion. That's fine. But a person could say, like you said, a person could say 100%. That's who's to say? I need to understand. Okay, at what level? You want to understand at a Kabbalistic level? What level? And they're just wasting time. They're just blowing smoke. There are some people that, that really believe that. The question is how far they take it. Because I don't think it's that complicated to show why, A, there's a God that exists in the world, and B, why I'm obligated to keep Torah and mitzvahs. So he's a Jew and as a non-Jew, keep the Noahide laws. It's not rocket science over here. A lot of proofs out there. Question is, do you want to look at them? And if you say, well, that's what it is, and I'm not interested, okay. That's why it was brought up. You can't bring proof. I could bring proof. You want to hear it? And most people are going to say no. They're not going to call you on it. Right? But they're going to use it as an excuse. And I mentioned this many times. We have to see where they're using it as a block, as they're using it just to say something, and they're not interested in an answer, or they actually really want an answer. If they really want an answer, you got a chance. If they don't want an answer, it doesn't matter what you say. You could be the next coming of Moshe Rabbeinu. Not going to help. Not going to help. They're not interested. They just throw out things to throw out things just to make you look bad. That's it. Come on. You really want to understand? I really, really want to understand. But it's going to take a while. It can take my whole lifetime. Come on. It's not going to take your whole lifetime. It's not going to take 20 years. If you really want to do the research, very easy to do the research. And not that complicated. It's very easy with computers today. Very, very easy. To find information. Question is if you want it so badly or not. And for most people, it doesn't really bother them. I don't think it really bothers them. I think it's just an excuse. That I do understand. How can I keep something if I don't fully believe? Okay, so what's it going to take? What's it going to take to convince? Study it.
Rabbi, can you recommend a book on the Jewish laws of rebuke? I've been looking for one, and I'm not sure, and I haven't come across anything that just says, okay.
You don't need a book on the laws of rebuke. You have Rabbi Chaim Coffman right here. That's what we're doing, the rebuke. So the laws of rebuke are complicated. I've never seen a book on it. I did hear some recent classes on it that that some people think that we don't know how to rebuke today, which is probably true, which 100% is true, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily exempt. Doesn't mean we don't have to, we don't have to rebuke people even if they're not going to listen, right? My Rebbe said many times he's made protests, against desecration of Shabbos, other things, because he didn't want to get upstairs after 120 years. And God says, hey, how come you didn't protest over here? Because no one's going to listen. Doesn't matter. Sometimes you have to protest anyway. But people will say we don't have to rebuke today, so it doesn't exist. Right? So we don't have to do it. The mitzvah's gone by the wayside. It's true that we don't know how to give rebuke. Doesn't necessarily mean you're exempt. Right? 100% doesn't mean you're exempt. And there are times you have to say things. And you have to do things. Right? I'll give you an example. We said before. So you never see Torah is always interconnected. Right? We mentioned I had a friend of mine that went to his sister's wedding. Right? Sister married a non-Jew. Now, what's the greatest rebuke you can give without saying anything? You don't go. You don't go. Now, if they call you on it, they call you on it, right? They try and convince you. Now, what's the punishment over here? Death. Seemingly, right? Seemingly, there's going to be a murder taking place here if there was a Sanhedrin, right? If there was a Jewish Supreme Court, and if there was if there was a temple in Jerusalem, they say, you want me to go witness a murder? Can't go witness a murder. Torah tells me many times that you're not allowed to intermarry. Many, many times. What do you think, God was kidding? Even if there were 4 authors and a redactor, the well-thousand documentary hypothesis everyone in academia holds by, except for us, right? Except the Bible thumpers here, right? That we don't hold by. Even if it's written by man. So what did man think? And I use this as an argument to somebody. I said, what do you think, even if it was written by man? Let's say, it was written by man. And the Torah says a number of times, half a dozen times, dozen times, more, that you're not allowed to intermarry. What do you think they were saying? You think they were kidding? You think it only meant for that generation? Maybe you think only when they came into the land and they had to wipe out the other nations. Maybe it only meant that. I said, okay, so what do you think? What's your answer? That the Torah says many times you can't do it. And the answer I got, because obviously this person didn't want to hear what I had to say, but what was the answer? You are a fanatic. I thought, I know I'm a fanatic. I know I'm a right-wing, absolute fanatic. I agree. With a capital F, not the Philly fanatic, just a regular fanatic. Okay. Even though I'm a regular fanatic, I asked the question. Give me an answer. I don't care what answer you give me. Give me an answer. Give me an answer according to the Torah. Give me an answer according to the writings. Prophets. Give me some sort of answer why you think in the marriage is okay. And source it. And they said, you're a nut. You're a fanatic. What does that mean? A, they don't have an answer. B, they don't want to give an answer because they know what the answer is. They know what the answer is. So they say, I didn't do anything wrong. No, you did. You intermarried. That's wrong. Your wife didn't do anything wrong. Not her fault. Not her fault. You're toast over here, not her. They don't want to hear that. But you can't sit around and say that's okay. As an Orthodox Jew or as a Noahide, right? You cannot say intermarriage is okay. That you're not allowed to say, oh, people are going to throw it against you. They're going to call you a fanatic. You're breaking up the family. I got called a lot of things. Okay. Either the Torah is true. This is what we come back to. Either the Torah is true or it's not true. But again, I asked a reasonable question. The question was, show me why intermarriage is okay. I'm not having this discussion. You're right. You know why you're not having that discussion? Because you don't have an answer. You don't have an answer. You know that I'm right, but you're not going to admit it. Okay. But you know that I'm right. So at the end of the day, that's it. So they're not going to give an answer over here, but you have to stand up to Torah. There are times you have to stand up for Torah, even if it's unpopular. I've had to do a lot of things unpopular. Very, very unpopular. What can I do? Torah says this. Torah says that. Couldn't find any loopholes. Couldn't find any leniencies. That's it. Nothing to do. You put me in a corner, in a bad situation. You 100% put me in a bad situation. Okay, what can I do? What should I do over here? I'm in a no-win situation. The only question is damage control. In the last 30 years, that's what I've been up against. Damage control. Until people finally just gave up because I'm too thick and stubborn, which is probably true in many ways, right? But in the end, that's what it is. So I'm not gonna look very good. Torah's not gonna look very good, okay? Torah maybe have an image problem. We're anti-pig, we're anti-non-Jew, we're anti-this, okay? You don't like it, that's too bad. I believe the Torah is true, and I prove that the Torah is true. And you're not interested, fine. So if you have a problem with me, you have a problem with the Torah. People don't want to get rebuked. They don't want to hear what they do is wrong, right? So it doesn't matter. There are times, like in this case, when it came to an intermarriage, and someone said, can't you find a leniency, a loophole, like something? And I made the following statement. When I got married, we said, if any of you intermarry, i.e. my wife's sister, we're not coming to the wedding. We made that clear. Wanted to show at least maybe somewhat of a deterrent, right? So there was an intermarriage. We didn't go. I happened to be in the States. We didn't go. There was hell to pay. How come you can't go? Can't you find a leniency? No, you can't find a leniency. There's no leniency. You represent Orthodoxy. You're an Orthodox Jew. How in the world could you go there? Yeah, you know what I'll do? I'll put on my goalie mask. I'll take my chainsaw and I'll say, okay, my name is Jason. Jason Coffman. That's my name. I'm here to kill people. That's what it is. It's a massacre. That's what should happen. They say, Rabbi, come on. Now, that's too much. Why is it too much? Death penalty. It's death penalty. So people that trample on Judaism and they don't care, make it into mincemeat. So I would say, so why do you care if I don't go? Come on, your family. Why do you care what I have to say? I said, I don't care. But it bugs you. It bugs you. Why does it bug you? Because it's true. Deep down that what you're doing is wrong. Because if 1 billion people say what you're doing is okay, don't worry about it, one person. All you need is one person, right? Where do we see proof for that? We see proof for that in the book of Esther, right? Haman, had his own, idol worshiping thing. Every time you walk in a room, everyone get on the ground, bow to him. Everybody had to bow to him. They didn't like him so much for this reason. Walk in a room, out of a room, they ought to get on the floor and bow. One person didn't bow. Who's there? One person didn't bow. Mordechai the Jew. Mordechai didn't bow. Now Haman had all his kids, in different places, had a lot of power. Conglomerated a lot of power, a lot of wealth. Unbelievable wealth. And not only did he want to kill Mordechai, he wanted to kill everyone Mordechai was associated with, i.e. his nation. Now you're going to say, with all the wealth and all the power and everything else, so what does the book of Esther say? It wasn't worth anything to him. Why wasn't it worth anything to him? Because he knew the truth. He knew that one person thought he was nothing, that he was a former barber for 22 years. He was a nothing. He was a scoundrel. Doesn't matter how much power, doesn't matter everything else. But see, he bugged him. It bugged Haman. Mr. Haman himself bugged him to no end. Why did it bug him to no end? Because this guy's got an ego the size of the entire universe, plus, and he's got all the money, he's got all the power, but he knows what absolute truth is. He knows that he's nothing. He knows that all his money is nothing, all the power is nothing, because Mordechai knows the truth. And to him, that wasn't worth anything, right? Everything that he had wasn't worth anything, right? Because one person thought and knew who he really was. And he couldn't be sold with that. He couldn't accept it. There's no possible way he could accept it. And therefore, he went ballistic. Not only am I going to kill him, I'm going to kill his entire nation. So I would say everybody else worships you. You got all the power, you got all the money, you got the wisest of all women. As a wife, you got everything going for you. What do you care? Why do you care? There's one Jew. There's one Jew. living according to his antiquated laws. Why do you care? Why do you care what he says or what he does? Because he knows he's wrong. Right? May his name be blotted out, may rot wherever he is. He claimed, what were the Jewish people? They brought morality to the world. We got to eradicate that. We have to get rid of that. You don't think he understood? He understood what it means. Of course he understood what it means. He didn't care. And he said, we have to get rid of that. So he had his own mishigas. He had his own craziness. Whatever. But at the end of the day, someone can be wealthy, tremendously wealthy, have a lot of power, and let's say, he's sitting there bragging, I got my own jet plane, I got this, I got that, and you're sitting there, you're barely paying your rent, you're barely paying your bills, you're getting by, you're squeezing by, and you're like, okay, like that doesn't impress me. You got a gold toilet. I got a toilet that's plastic. Cost me $10, Canadian, right? Cost me nothing. And when I sit on it, is it any better than, is your gold toilet any better? No, in the winter it's going to be colder. It's going to be colder when you sit down. It's not going to be any better. Why do you think it's going to be any better? Oh, that's really impressive. That's impressive. I got a gold toilet, spent, $500,000 on a toilet that, what goes in the toilet, right? It's going to get flushed, right? It's the waste of your body, right? So you're spending all this money on something that's worth really nothing. It is worth nothing. People say, yeah, I have this, I have that, I have the other thing. And what would happen? Someone sitting there just says, okay, big deal. So what? So what do you have all these things? You're real happy? Gives you real meaning in life? Just because you can fly here and do this and do that? You get someone who puts a little bit of, knocks a little bit of wind out of their sail. You say, what I could do? I could call this person head of this company, get a meeting like that. You know who I am. Well, I don't care who you are. You're a scumbag. That's what you are. You're sitting here bragging about all the things you have. So what? I don't think it's really worth that much. Oh, you're struggling. You can't even pay rent. You can't do this. You're right. I have different issues. You're right. I have different issues. So what does money do for you? That takes a little bit of the sail out of, the wind out of someone's sail. Because here they are bragging. And you should worship the ground they walk on because they have money. Why should I worship the ground they walk on? Right? If you're giving the money to the right things, you're giving, the proper charities and this and that. Okay. Then you're using it for the right thing. Then you deserve respect. But you sit there and waste it and flaunt it and this and that. Well, what do I care? So you want to waste it? Go ahead. You want to be like some of these players or whatever. They buy all these fancy cars. Mike Tyson had a tiger, a few tigers, this, that. Okay, that's supposed to be impressive. That's supposed to be. You got all this money, so what are you using it for? You want to tell me you're building things in Africa? You do another thing? Okay, you're giving charity. Very good. Use it for a good purpose. But take someone who doesn't care about your money. Take someone who's just like, I'm not so what? So what do you have a lot of money? Big deal. The question is what you do with it. Oh, you want to flaunt it, this and that? Show all your other bad character traits? I have to respect that? No, but that's going to grate on a person. Sorry, that's going to grate on a person. That's the word. Because it's going to, oh, you're jealous. What do I have to do with jealous? Have it. You don't have it. God takes care of everybody. How much meaning do you really have in life with all the money? How much happiness do you have with your kids, if you have kids? Like Rav Weinberg once said, what's your greatest pleasure? Kids. What's your greatest aggravation? Kids. Okay, let's go back to your greatest pleasure. Your greatest pleasure is kids. How many kids do you have? 1. He goes, what's the matter? Too much pleasure? You're going to say, wow, so many kids, and you can't do this, and whatever. Kids are a blessing in many ways. Kids also, wrench your heart out as well, right? What's the real meaning of life? What's the real meaning of life? Is the meaning of life all about money? All about power? Or is the meaning of life about values? And about having good values? That's why we're learning ethics here, right? Or is it about having proper values? Proper value is worth everything. I saw my Rebbe brought down this week's parsha. Chai Sarah spoke about finding a shidduch, finding a woman for Yitzchak. So someone came to the Chazon Ish of Avram Mishna8 with the blessed memory and said, "What should you look for in a spouse?" One of the things he said is that she should never get angry. Right? She shouldn't be stubborn. Shouldn't be stubborn. I saw someone else, my Rebbe brought down, what should we look for? Midos, midos, and midos. Meaning, character traits. Does she act with chesed? What was the character traits that Avram wanted for Yitzchak? Chesed. Because his house was a house of chesed. He wanted someone of chesed that was going to do chesed. So Eliezer prays, and he says, I just want someone who's going to be by this well, that's going to come and say, can I get you to drink and your camels? Right? Now, you have to understand, she was 3 at the time. Now, a person at the age, way back when, at the age of 6, 7, could have children. So maybe she was even well endowed at the age of 3, let's say. Right? But the miracle was that the water came up from the well. But even so, if the water came up automatically, she's just filling out the buckets to give to, how much a camel drinks? Gallons. Or, sorry, you're in Canada. Liters. Right? I'm in Israel. Liters. Right? Liters. Tens of hundreds of liters. Even if she was a teenager, strong teenager, right? A strong teenager. You know how much effort it's going to take to feed 10 camels?
Oh, yeah.
And that, so it's absolutely miraculous. But the point is, he wanted to see that this person have chesed. This person had the character trait of chesed, because that was the most important thing. No matter what family, didn't matter what family she came from, because Abraham wanted from his own family. Even though his own family wasn't so great, but it was better than, everyone else around. So be that as it may, he wanted character traits. That's what we're looking for. I heard Rav Pesach Krohn, should be well, once say a person marries for money, they lose interest. Not about money, not about looks, because looks is about infatuation. And what happens after a couple kids doesn't look the same? That's it, it's over. It's all about physicality, it's over. Right? We've spoken about a number of times. So here, it's all about the midos. It's all about character traits. Is it about how much money you have? No. It's about what you do with it. It's about how you help others. Do you remember what it was like not to have? Right? What levels of chesed, acts of loving kindness, do you do or you don't do? So you're sitting there buying more limousines, more planes, more this. So what are you doing for the world? Nothing. They say, what do I care about the world? I want to enjoy myself. I want to enjoy. That's how I enjoy life. That doesn't impress me. That shouldn't impress any Jew or Noahide. Why? Because they're not helping anyone. They're just feeding their stomach. They're just feeding their egos. And they're waiting for people to bow down just to speak to them so they can maybe try and get money out of them or whatever. Right? Because of who they are. Or I care who they are. Or I care. So that person is either going to think you're a genuine 100% wacko, that, you have no idea how the world works, or they're going to be really, it doesn't go, see, I'm a person of extreme. It either goes one way or the other. Either going to think you're an absolute wacko, and they're going to think you have no idea how the world works, or why is he not impressed over here? How can he not be impressed? Go toilet. How can he not be impressed? So then they'll say, okay, so what are you living for? Oh, very good question. Torah, mitzvahs, helping others, having good character traits, working on my character traits, being a better person, being not the same person I was yesterday, going through struggles, overcoming struggles, different things, reaching my potential. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do what God wants me to do. And you're too busy stuffing your face. You're too busy using the money for garbage. Okay? That's your choice. Now, I guarantee a person like that's just going to throw you out. Most likely. Most likely it will throw you out and say, geez, this person's a nut. This person's a whack job. This person, yeah, whatever. It's going to grate on them. Because they can say, I'm going to even make more money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. What does this person know? You're right. Is he any different than Haman? You're not any different than Haman. All the power. You know, you can get the president on the phone. Okay. You know, that's impressive. Very good. You know, you can do all these things. But there's one person out there that doesn't think he's worth spit. My language. Doesn't think he's worth anything. And thinks he's a grub. And thinks he's a pig. And thinks other things. You know, so on the one hand, they'll say, who is he to think that? Who is he to say that? What does he know about anything? On the other hand, it's going to grate on that person. They can push it away as much as they want. But they say, but you struck a raw nerve. People don't want to be struck a raw nerve. People don't want to hear what they do is wrong. So yeah, there's an obligation to rebuke when it's necessary. When it's necessary. You know, and even if they're not going to listen. Doesn't matter. You got to do it out of love. You got to do it out of compassion. You can't embarrass them in public unless they're totally evil. Right? I just came across something in the laws of damages about rabbinic court judge. That's what I'm learning with people up north. But rabbinic court judges can't take bribes. Right? They can't take bribes. They can't get, benefit from anyone else and then judge them, in different things. And one of the questions was, somebody like that, they have to have people, people accompany them. So there's more honor. There's more honor for them, and if someone says something against them, whatever the case is, you can embarrass them in public. Totally embarrass them in public. So I saw someone brought down from the laws of Lashon Hara. From the laws of Lashon Hara, the Chofetz Chaim says, yeah, someone who's evil, I can embarrass them in public in order to get them to repent. It's better you do it in private. But if they're so bad, I can embarrass them in public. I can say whatever I want against them because of their status. Because of their status and what they do. Now, you might say, maybe it's not a good thing to do. Maybe one second, maybe it's not a good thing to do, just to want to speak Lashon or whatever. But when it comes to people who start trouble, what we call Bali Machlokes, they start trouble, and that's all they want to do, like Dustam and Aviram in the Torah, they're the biggest troublemakers, right? So, not only is it permissible, you fight against them. You fight against them, you work hard against them. Why? Because they deserve to be spit out of the land. They deserve to be destroyed. So you do whatever it takes. You do whatever it takes. There could be some people also that are so bad, I can take away their living. I can work hard to make sure they have nothing. Now, if we could do that and not get caught, it'd be okay. But someone's going to say, come on, someone who's that evil, even if they don't know so much, whatever. I'm saying the law on the books could be that I can do whatever it takes to make sure they lose everything because of what they're doing. And that's not a problem. It's not a problem with Lashon Hara. It's not a problem of doing this because of what they're doing. Because they're blaspheming against God and all these other things. You had a question before or a comment? Yeah, you had a question before?
Yeah, no, and I just got a message from somebody else as well that pulled out of the broadcast. It's too easy to be critical all the time and point out wrongs all the time. And I just find in our day and age, derogatory behavior is just run amok. And I have found that anyone can make someone guilty as guilty can be by just being unrelenting in their pursuit or attack. But you kind of covered yourself when you said you don't want to get into Lashon Hara, and so realistically, I mean,
you're
it's
right.
so easy.
It is very easy to be critical
and raise a standard that's impossible to achieve.
We live in a very cynical society. All you have to do is listen to any sports talk radio or any talk radio. That's all they do. Complain about this, complain about that. This player,
New topic, complain about that. Yeah.
Yeah, this person's dogging it. They don't deserve a lot of money. All kinds of things. All kinds of things. It's very easy to be critical. You're right. But we're not talking about being critical for the sake of being critical. We're talking about being critical where someone goes well beyond. Where someone goes well beyond. I'll give an example. There's someone passed away a while ago that their whole goal was to get Orthodox Jews to go against Judaism. To bring questions into their life where they're going to leave Judaism. So there's a great rabbi, this happened to be his brother. And when his brother died, Rev Eliashiv, the Poisek Ador, greatest rabbi of the last generation, of blessed memory, said you have no obligation to sit Shiva. You have no obligation to mourn for him. He was evil incarnate, whatever you want to call him. Went so far against Judaism and what he was trying to do. He said you don't have any mitzvah to sit for him. No Kaddish, no saint, no mourner's prayer, no nothing. So you're right. We do live in an overcritical society. So we have to know. We have to know when to pick someone apart and when not to. We're not saying it's free for all. Just someone doesn't keep Torah mitzvahs and sit out there bashing them. Right? I mean, it's what I do in general. But we're not doing, there has to be a purpose. There has to be some benefit over here for doing it. We're not just, I'm not just shooting off my mouth, even though some people may think that. I'm not just shooting off my mouth and saying, look what this person did, that person did. I'm talking from pain, what I've seen family go through, what I've seen people give up for nothing. So if it has no purpose and you're just bashing people, then it's still permitted if they're evil. The Chofetz Chaim says clear, 100% is permissible. Someone someone goes against Judaism, and they're evil and all that, 100% permissible. Right? But doesn't mean I should be doing it all the time. There should be a purpose, should be conditions. Right? Some things I don't need conditions. Right? But again, if there's a purpose and you're warning other people about a certain mentality or whatever, it has a purpose. Even though I speak about it a lot, it has a purpose. If a person would just bash
Rabbi, somebody on YouTube's also asking for clarification on did you say that Jewish intermarriage should have the death penalty? Is that the actual case?
Jewish intermarriage, it's forbidden. Forbidden, right? It's forbidden for a Jew to be with a non-Jew intimately anytime. Right? Total prohibition. It's forbidden. Every time they're intimate. Question is that
punishable?
Is that it's certainly punishable, right? I don't think I don't think there's a question, right? Question is if it's really is it really death penalty? It's a negative command, right? But essentially, what are they doing? Essentially, they're uprooting Torah. Every Jew, even if it wouldn't be a death penalty, let's say, even if it wouldn't be death penalty. If you would ask any Jew today, if you would say that you would ask any Jew today. So let's say better. If you would ask any Jew today, according to the Bible, don't give me any answers. According to the Bible, yes or no? Right? Are you allowed to marry a non-Jew? Are you ever allowed to marry a non-Jew? Yes or no? It's a yes or no answer. I don't want but. This generation, that generation, another generation. Is it forbidden or not? Now, most Jews, maybe 30, 40 years ago, maybe they would have said this. I don't know about today, but I think most Jews would answer, you're not allowed to marry a non-Jew. It's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that you're not allowed to marry a non-Jew. Right? If you're not allowed to marry a non-Jew, even if it's not the death penalty. Right? Even if it's not the death penalty over here. If you're not allowed to marry a non-Jew and you're over Torah prohibition being with this non-Jew every time you're intimate, then is there any more serious crime against God than intermarrying? That would be the question. Right? That's the question. Is there anything worse? You say homosexuality is bad. You're right. Homosexuality is bad. Right? Death penalty by stoning. Right? Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 3. You shall not marry them, i.e. Gentiles, Should not give your daughter to their son. Should not take a daughter for them. Why? Because it's going to lead you astray. Serving God. Right? Forbidden. 100% forbidden. Now, the problem over here is, without going into all the details, the problem is that it's such a basic thing not to intermarry. Most people today don't care. They think it's against non-Jews. They think we hate non-Jews. I always say, I love non-Jews, like the ones in my own family that are married to Jews. Right? The problem is it's the single biggest slap in the face to God than anything else. You're going to say, well, maybe the punishment's not the same. Maybe it's not. Right? Shabbos may be a greater prohibition. Homosexuality may be a greater prohibition. Right? Both have the highest level of prohibition. Skila, right? Being stoned to death. Thrown off a 3-story building. Whatever it is. So even if you want to tell me it's not that high. It doesn't get that level of corporal punishment or whatever. It is the single biggest thing leading to the destruction of the Jewish people today. Besides assimilation and all that, where Jews don't know anything about Judaism. But you have communities, 60, 70, 85% in some places.
It starts a slide for sure.
It's a high percentage. I mean, 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 Jews today are intermarried. That is going to be a disaster for Judaism. And what's the reason they're intermarried? 99% of the time is lack of knowledge. Since they don't have knowledge, they don't think there's anything wrong with it. But again, people might think, well, eating pig is bad. You're right. That's only one prohibition. Right? If I keep eating it, fine. But here, every time you're intimate, it's a prohibition for the Jew over here. But not only that, if the mother's not Jewish, kids aren't Jewish. But even if the kids are Jewish, I think the percentage of them that do not get any Jewish education is like 70, 80% or something like that. It's a very high percentage from an intermarriage. That's destruction. So even if the kid is Jewish, doesn't matter. In my case, I'll use myself as an example. Right? My mother had 4 aunts and an uncle. There are 2 left. My mother has an aunt, 95 years old. She should be well. And she has an uncle who's 89 years old. Now, the 3 other aunts that my mother had, 2 out of 3, their Jewish lines are gone because of intermarriage. The other aunt still has a Jewish line, but it's on life support. In other words, you got a bunch of daughters that are still Jewish, but intermarried. So if they only have sons, that's it. So another 20 years, 30 years, that line's going to disappear. Through my mother's line. So she only has me. 2 brothers are intermarried. Her only brother also intermarried. So that's it. Her line exists because of me, spiritually. So now you got 5 lines. 3 are gone. 1 is on life support. 1 is going to be gone 20 years, 30 years. Through intermarriage, it'll be gone. Totally gone. The only one left is going to be my mother's line. Now, this isn't uncommon. I'm not tooting my own horn here. It's nothing to toot over here. It's destruction. Total destruction. Not to mention all the Jewish spouses who were supposed to marry Jews and how messed up their soul. We're not even going to go there. That's a whole other discussion. Right? What happened? That's the Matrix. That's total destruction. And why they intermarry? Ignorance. Total ignorance. I don't know any better. Total ignorance. Where I came from, pretty big miracle. Right? No question. But see, that's a normal thing. What happened over here? So now, You have 5 siblings, 1 left. You have 20% that's left spiritual. A little bit more, because I said it's on life support. Right? One other line is on life support. So, okay, 25%. 30%, I'll be generous. 30%. 70% wiped off the face of the map spiritually. That's destruction. That's absolute destruction. They're not coming back. That's it. It's over. It's done. You don't want to tell me souls can come back and whatever, through reincarnation. It's not going to happen now. This is the last time. Souls coming back. These souls are finished. How a Jewish soul becomes not Jewish, okay, it's a whole question. Kabbalistically, we're not going to go there. But through assimilation and intermarriage and lack of education, proper education, Judaism will never survive. It won't survive. It'll only survive by the 10% that keep what God says. So you're going to say, well, my synagogue has, 1,000 families, whatever, they're all intermarried, most of them. There are synagogues left and right, Reform conservative, shutting their doors. Why are they shutting their doors? Because nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Whoa.
It's all disappearing. Someone told me, no, my synagogue shut down 60% in the last 20 years, have left the synagogue. Why? Well, they don't like the rabbi, and it's about money. It's about the dues are very expensive. And I said, even if the dues are very expensive, even if the rabbi is bad, that's not going to account for 60%. 60% in 20 years, that's a big number. Right? So what's
Huge.
Coffman's law? Coffman's law is they don't believe in anything. They don't believe it's true, so they don't keep it. And it dies. And that's why it's intermarried. That's it. There's no other reason. In all these synagogues, someone told me a while ago, a certain synagogue I knew about growing up, 2,000 families, 1,000 families, shut their doors. Shut the doors. Sold the building. Nobody left. Why isn't there anybody left? What happened to all their offspring? Even if they had 1 kid, 2 kids, what happened to their kids? They had no interest. You tell me some moved away, whatever. They had no interest. Why didn't they have any interest? The parents had no interest. They just gave them a little bit of Judaism. That's destructive. So either you have apathy, which a lot of people have. That's probably akin to spiritual death today. People have apathy, and when people are cynical and apathetic, very hard to change them in general. And what does that lead to? Leads to assimilation into marriage. There are a lot of issues within the Jewish community. Right? That there's no question. Single biggest issue is intermarriage. It's intermarriage.
No doubt.
That's the single biggest issue. And it comes with lack of knowledge and lack of understanding why they should keep Torah and mitzvahs. The only people keeping Torah and mitzvahs are the Orthodox. That's it. You only have 10% left. Unfortunately, you only have 10% left. I certainly don't believe when the Messiah comes, these other people are going to get saved. They're in trouble. I mean, we're also in trouble. We have to have a lot of faith, a lot of belief. We're also in trouble. But at least we have a shake, as my father would say, of blessed memory. At least we have a shake because we're keeping Torah and mitzvahs. We're keeping what we need to keep, hopefully. And we're doing what we need to do. These other people don't have a prayer. They don't have a prayer over here. They're assimilated out. They're gone. They're 100% gone over here. There's a cleansing process. I heard Rabbi Tauber once say this, of blessed memory. There's a cleansing process going on. Either you're going to be Jewish or not. Nothing in between. So a lot of these people are opting out. Their choice to opt out. They have no idea what they're opting out of. See, that's the scariest thing. And that is what Hitler, Yamach Shemoy V'Zichro did by putting a gun to people's heads and killing them. Mm-hmm. We're doing it to ourselves spiritually. We're playing our own Russian roulette. But most people, again, do.
Wow. Way to bring this around.
Most people do not care. And they'll say, well, if you'd ask someone of my parents' generation, 80, 90 years ago, Judaism may not survive. Say, no, it's got to survive. This, that. Today, today they'll say, well, it's a good try. There are Jews out there. That's how bad it gets. There are Jews out there saying, what we're doing against the Palestinians? It's apartheid. You know what apartheid is? You know what genocide is, for goodness sakes? You ever look at the statistics, of what Hamas does using children on the front lines and using their weapons, and missiles and in areas where there are civilians and civilians get killed, and we have to be so moral? We have to be so moral and give out flyers, tell them we're going to bomb, get rid of the people. They're using them as human shields. They're not a new thing. When they blew up the UN building, the UN school, a couple of years ago, and the UN went ballistic. How could they do that? What a terrible thing. They were shooting missiles from the school. They were shooting missiles from the school. They wanted to stop missiles coming in. They blew up the school. So if the UN had any power, which they don't, but if they had any power, they would have stopped them, but they don't. So there's a lot of misinformation, tremendous amount of misinformation. You got these liberals, and these leftists. It's nuts what they say. They make statements that make absolutely no sense. None. Israel's an apartheid state? Really? It's an apartheid state. Total genocide. Do you know there's no such thing as a Palestinian people, which we mentioned before? We're not going to get into politics. Does anyone realize that outside of academia and the rest of the world? There's no such thing. I'll give you one solid proof. There's no such thing. Mark Twain, Samuel Langhorne Clemens, as he was known, came in the late 1800s, and he saw Israel was flattened like a pancake. There's hardly anybody living here. Where are the Palestinians? Where are the Palestinians yelling and screaming when the English took over? Oh, you closed our places. You put us in camps. You did all these terrible things. You broke us. There was no such thing. Second biggest lie to Christianity. That there's an idea of a Palestinian people. Doesn't exist. They never existed. Learn, please, anyone's going to make that statement, learn about Israeli history. Learn about proper Israeli history before you open your mouth and perpetuate the same lies going on and on and on. It's a lie. It's a total lie. They never existed. Never. We existed them. We put them in existence. The Israelis, idiots that they were. They did it. But you want to think they existed as a whole nation? No such thing. Now you want to call that, how can you call something apartheid? There's no other nation. There's no other people. Where's apartheid over here? We bought the land fair and square. And if you want to say might makes right, so what? They never say. We have to give land back to who? People that fled to Jordan? They're going to be nuts. Want to bring back millions of people according to the way the land was set up before the 6 Day War? I don't think so. The biggest lie ever. And who was the forefront of that? NBDS. Jews. Jews. You say there are plenty of non-Jews out there. True. But a lot of leftists. There are a lot of leftist Jews out there proclaiming that. You got, one example, because we're going to finish up here. What's the obvious example? Ben and Jerry's. 2 Jews. Nuts. Nut cases. What, we're not going to have our ice cream in that? No, this is what we believe. Are you nuts? You're absolutely out of your mind? Yeah, they took an unpopular stance. I don't think they realized the repercussions, what was going to happen. Right? But at the same time, yeah, it goes against our political views. And let me ask you, you understand what your political views are? You actually know what Israeli history is? This is occupied territory. Occupied territory. There are a lot of things here that most people don't understand. You know why they don't understand it? Because they never researched it. And they keep believing the same stupid things that the media says. Just like by Christianity. Lie after lie after lie. So, you got people...
Generation after generation after generation.
Right. You got people going on and on saying the same stupid things that they don't know anything about. But they make the same claims. And the same, but Israeli history is not that way. It's just not that way. You're getting the wrong information. But it's all in the media. It's everywhere. Right? Everywhere. So, we're our own worst enemy. I'll just give one other example. Right? One other example. 3 Jews that had probably the most impact in the 20th century. Who are they? Einstein, Freud, right? And who else do you have out there? Right? You know who started the communism? Right? So you got three, all heretics, all of them. Even though Freudian psychology not in vogue today. Okay, but they've had a major impact on the world in many ways. They know diddly squat about their own religion. Nothing. Right? Very little. So the problem is that people are giving up their Judaism for nothing. But, as I said, my personal pet peeve, one of them is that if you don't know and you haven't done the research, don't open your mouth. Right. I don't care how passionate you are. You're going to look like a fool. You're going to look like a fool by people like me that are going to call you out. And we're going to say, learn the rules, play the game, practice. Understand what you're saying because you make no sense. And do the research. And the research shows there's no such thing as a Palestinian people. That's what research shows. But again, same lie over and over and over again. And that's what it is. So it's based on ignorance. It's based on not looking into things. And if I wouldn't have been an Orthodox Jew, I grew up in Boston, I'd be a diehard liberal. I know nothing to talk about. I'd be a diehard liberal. But now that I've done the research and I've looked into things, and you can't argue with history. You just make your own history, right? History is his story. But if you do the research, I don't see how in the world you come up with that conclusion at all, right? But they say the same stupid things. They go on and on, right? But they have no idea what they're talking about. Now, if I were to go into a big company, a hedge fund, right? I'll end with this because I know we're running over, right? I went into a hedge fund and I said, I want you to invest $5 million, $10 million in this company because it begins with the letter C. My name begins with the letter C. Chaim begins with the letter C in English. Anyone's going to listen to me? I can be passionate. I can say, come on, you don't understand. I can be as passionate as I want. They're going to say, next. No one's going to take me seriously. And they shouldn't take me seriously. No one's taking anyone like that seriously. Now, you want to come in. And you want to say, oh, I'm convinced there's no such thing as the world to come. Really? I have a PhD, pilot higher and deeper, right? Many rabbis have greater PhDs than me. They got a lot of knowledge. You're going to come in with reading an article in Wikipedia and say, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. No, you're not. You're an ignoramus. And at least admit I'm an ignoramus. If you don't want to be an ignoramus, learn. Go out and study. And then come with me to all your questions and say, I don't think this, I don't think that, and I got my proofs. Okay? Let's tackle it one by one. But it's never going to happen. You know why it's never going to happen? Because if there's a 5% chance that I'm right, you're not going to change. And you don't want to change. Right? That's the bottom line. But do not spew the same stupid things that everyone else has been spewing when you haven't done the research. Do the research, and get back to me. And, then we'll see. But if you're just going to say the same thing, this is apartheid, really? When Mark Twain came, where are the Palestinians?
Rabbi, I have always been against tunnel vision.
That's what it is. There were Egyptians, there were Jordanians, there were people from Beirut. They're all over. There was no such thing as one entity. Never happened. Not by the Turks, not by the Ottomans, not by the British, not before that. Come on, by the Crusades. With Palestinian people, where are they? There's nobody here. Nobody here. I don't even have to go that far back. Late 1800s, early 1900s, nothing here, flattened like a pancake. Until the students of Vilna Gaon started draining the swamps and all that. Oh, but they're Palestinian people. Really? Come on. You gotta do better than that. Anyway, we're gonna have a part 4 because we only hit the tip of the iceberg, right? But I'm gonna give a plug. Tomorrow we're gonna hit the Noahide Laws and Noahide Nations. It's gonna be at 2:30 Eastern time. 9:30 Israel time. It's going to be the history of B'nai Noach, recent history. So we're going to go through that. Class is free.
Beautiful.
Anyone interested, can sign up at Noahide Nation. Should be a lot of fun, I hope. And we'll take it from there.
You're doing a good job with that, Rabbi. You're very clear. Your typical enthusiastic self, but you're very clear, and I find the points are you've done your prep work and you're delivering it caring and poignant. So you're the right man for the job for sure.
It doesn't matter if I yell and scream. Doesn't matter if I speak too fast. Put it on a slower thing. That's what it is. I'll try and speak a lot slower tomorrow. We'll see. But then I'll end up talking like this, and everyone will fall asleep. So
you remember old record players, Rabbi, if you ever played at 45 on the 33 setting?
That's it. So I tell people, listen, if you don't like the way I yell and scream, just turn down the volume. And if I speak too fast, just do it at half speed, and then you'll be able to hear everything. So we'll be good.
Well, Rabbi, we appreciate you sharing with us today, Pirkei Avos. I think you brought today's message all the way around about vanity of humanity. Often we tend to get distracted by so many different things and never studying or pursuing Torah for its own sake, right? And this world distracts us, but we can't let that own us, right? I don't want to be like somebody who just is a leaf floating down a river.
No, it's easy. Whatever. We've spoken about that. Very easy to get distracted, and most people, even if it's independent as they say they are, they're going according to what the rest of the world says. They're not as independent as they say. They're not as open-minded as they say because, again, they're saying what the media says. They're saying what quote-unquote history says without doing their own research. Oh, but I read it in the newspaper. I saw it on the internet. It must be true.
Rabbi, you got comments in the YouTube chat room. Speak as fast as you want. Yeah, so
that's pretty funny. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. But some people, again, I got a lot of flack. I got a little bit of flack. Someone here asked, interesting, about Obama's mother was Jewish. I don't know if that's true. First of all, I know he's not American. That's a different issue. But if Obama's mother was actually Jewish, yeah, that would make him Jewish. But I don't know if that's true. I've never heard such a thing. But I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, anyways, I should be winding it down. So Hashem willing, are we on next week, Rabbi, the same time? I know that you guys have your daylight savings right now in Israel, so it's an hour.
Yeah, daylight savings is starting tonight. So any of my class, anyone outside of America, i.e. Europe or Africa, let's say, so the class will be an hour earlier. So for next week, it's going to be the same time for everybody else, at least in Canada and in the States. And US, for anyone outside, anyone in Israel outside outside that area, i.e., let's say in the UK, Europe, Africa, it's going to be an hour earlier. So instead of being 9:30 Israel time, it's going to be 8:30. Right? It'll be an hour earlier, but still be plenty of time because we're changing the clocks back, so Shabbos comes in very early.
Okay, so folks, we will be on at our usual time here, tentatively, Hashem willing, next week with Pirkei Avos, but it will be 1 hour earlier in Israel, and I'll try to make the adjustment when I post it later in the week, inviting everybody. We want to thank you, Rabbi Coffman, for being with us today. I encourage everybody, check him out as he's doing his Noahide Nation things for Noahides. If you have interest and you're newer to it and you want to learn the background and a lot about the Noahide laws, I am confident that he will be passing on some beautiful material to you so you can register on Noahide Nations and check that out. And I've got to close out now because I've got Rabbi Poston going live in about 20 minutes, so I got to set that all up. So I'm going to sign out for today. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, folks, and we'll catch you next week. Bye for now.